Today, we are diving deep into the world of one of nature's most successful, and let's be honest, kind of bizarre survivors. We're talking about a true master of manipulation, an evolutionary marvel that has absolutely perfected the art of living at someone else's expense. Get ready, because we are exploring the incredible story of the poultry tapeworm. So let me just ask you this to get started. In the whole animal kingdom, you've got your hunters, your gatherers, your grazers, but who is the ultimate freeloader? Who's the one that has completely outsourced the basics of survival, like finding food, or, get this, even digesting it? Well, the answer is a parasite, and the tapeworm is pretty much at the top of that list. Okay, so the fancy scientific name for this group is Cestoda. That's the tapeworms. Now, these are parasitic flatworms, and their entire adult world is the digestive tract of a vertebrate. And think about this for a second. They've evolved to have no digestive system of their own. I mean, why would you need one? They literally live in a sea of pre-digested food that their host provides. It is the absolute peak of evolutionary efficiency, or maybe laziness, depending on how you look at it. So let's zoom in and meet our main character. And I want you to just push aside any image you have of some simple monstrous worm. That's not what this is. What we're really looking at is a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. This is a creature that is perfectly, and I mean perfectly, built for one thing and one thing only: to anchor in, soak up nutrients, and reproduce on a massive scale. It all starts with this first piece of anatomy, the scolex. Now, don't think of it as a head with a mouth or a brain. Nope. It is a pure, powerful anchor. It's armed with these super strong suckers and sometimes even rows of sharp hooks, and it uses them to latch on to the intestinal wall of its host with just incredible force. Once that thing is in, trust me, it is not letting go. Right behind that anchor, you've got the neck. And you can think of this as the tapeworm's own personal factory floor. It's this non-stop growth engine, just constantly churning out new body segments, one after another, pushing the older ones further and further down the line. And it's this continuous production that lets the tapeworm grow to, sometimes, just astonishing lengths. And all that growth leads us to the main event, the body, which is called the strobila. It's actually less like a single organism and more like a long chain of these individual, self-contained units called proglottids. And each one is its own little reproductive factory, amazingly equipped with both male and female organs. As they get pushed down the chain, they mature, getting ready for the next critical stage of their mission. So, the tapeworm's entire existence is geared towards one thing: making more tapeworms. But that brings up a huge problem, right? How in the world do you get your offspring out of your host's gut into the wider world to find a new host? Well, this requires something we're calling the Great Escape. Here's the basic roadmap of that journey. And it is an intricate, multi-stage process where every single step has to go just right. First, an egg-filled segment breaks off. Then it has to get passed out in the host's feces. Then it has to be eaten by the right kind of intermediate host. And then that specific host has to be eaten by the final, definitive host. The odds are just astronomical, making this a true high-risk, high-reward strategy for survival. Okay, so this first step in the escape, it has a name. It's called apolysis. A proglottid way at the end of the line becomes gravid, which is just a fancy way of saying it's absolutely packed with thousands of fertilized eggs. Then it just detaches. It breaks off from the main body and gets carried out with the host's feces, all set to start its big journey. But an egg just lying on the ground is totally useless. To keep this whole thing going, the tapeworm needs an accomplice. It needs an unsuspecting partner in its reproductive scheme. And this stage requires a very, very unlikely alliance. Okay, so to get what happens next, we've got to understand the two critical roles in this drama. First, you have the definitive host. In our story, that's the chicken. This is the final destination where the tapeworm grows into an adult and reproduces. But then you have the intermediate host, something like a beetle or an earthworm. This little guy is the essential taxi service. It eats the eggs, and then the parasite's larval stage can develop safely inside it. It's basically a living, moving vehicle just waiting to deliver its passenger. All right, so all the pieces are in place. Now comes the most critical moment in the tapeworm's entire life cycle: the transfer. How does this parasite get from its temporary taxi into the 5-star resort of the chicken's intestine? Well, it's all about breaching the gates. The intermediate host basically becomes a Trojan horse. A chicken, just doing its thing, foraging for food, pecks up and eats an infected beetle or an earthworm. It has absolutely no idea that hidden inside that little meal is a tapeworm larva, armed and ready to go. The parasite has just successfully used another creature to sneak right past the chicken's defenses. And once it's inside, the invasion begins. The larva is released from its intermediate host, and its mission is simple. Find a good spot on the intestinal wall, anchor in with its scolex, and just start growing. The life cycle is now complete, but the story is far from over. For the host chicken, the real trouble is just beginning. And make no mistake, this invasion can be absolutely devastating. One source puts it really plainly. A species found in poultry, called Davinea proglutina, is tiny. It's actually the smallest, but it's also the most pathogenic. That means the most dangerous. So we are not just talking about a freeloader stealing a few extra nutrients here. This is an all-out assault on the host's body. So how can such a tiny creature cause so much chaos? Well, it all comes back to that anchor, the scolex. It embeds itself so deeply into the delicate lining of the intestine that it causes severe inflammation. That's a condition called enteritis. And from there, it can get even worse, escalating to necrosis, which is literally the death of the surrounding tissue. In a heavy infection, all this damage can absolutely kill the bird. So, for anyone who raises poultry, this isn't just some cool biological curiosity. It's a very serious, very practical threat. Which, of course, brings us to our final question. How do you even begin to fight this unseen enemy? This really breaks the problem down pretty clearly for us. On the one hand, you've got the threats, everything from serious internal damage to just general malnourishment and weakness in the flock. So how you detect it? Well, it often comes down to finding those little egg-filled segments in stool samples. And the defense? Ultimately, it's all about one thing: breaking that incredibly complex life cycle. That means managing the population of intermediate hosts like beetles and worms, and understanding why birds in caged systems tend to have less exposure than backyard birds. When you really step back and think about it, it's just mind-blowing. The poultry tapeworm, a creature with no gut, no mouth, and really no brain to speak of, has evolved one of the most complex and successful survival strategies on the entire planet. It really makes you wonder, if all of this hidden drama is playing out inside a common chicken, what other unbelievable ecosystems and incredible survival stories are unfolding all around us right now, just waiting to be discovered?